All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a presentation, and then we'll take comments from the board, and then any additional, and then we'll even give the public another chance to comment. And hopefully I'll address some of the concerns and questions that were raised. But the thing I want to emphasize, most importantly, sorry, let me just wait till everybody. The thing I want to emphasize most importantly is the access question. Well, sorry. The thing I want to emphasize most importantly, you have a draft report right now. It's a draft report, and the whole goal is to take comments from the public. We had a first session where we got comments, and this whole question of access, park access came up, and very helpful comments, and we'll certainly address those in the final definitive report. I'm very confident that there'll be a real effort to make sure that access doesn't change. I guess that's the first point. But this is a draft report, so these comments are very much welcome and helpful. And then we'll pick this up again also in our January meeting. Tonight's really just an opportunity for the public to comment and then to have a discussion with the board, which we haven't had a chance to do yet. So I'll just briefly make a presentation. And then also you mentioned managing the town. Obviously, we're going to have to continue to manage the town come what may for the next 2 years. And I think you saw some of that tonight. Okay. So basically, we hired CGR. I can't remember what that CGR stands for, but they did an absolutely fantastic job. Center for Government Research. And ultimately did a fantastic job. I encourage everybody to read the report. The first thing we're trying to achieve here is the conversation. Now, I'm going to give my stump speech that the board has heard ad nauseum, but our tax dynamic is unsustainable. Golda, I know you share that view. Our taxes are too high. Yeah. And so ultimately, it's very clear to me that if we don't fundamentally restructure the way we govern ourselves, we will no longer be able to compete. New York State is the 50th in terms of a place to do business. 50, the worst in the nation. How can we possibly have New York City as the business center of the world? The business center of the world, and we're 50th in terms of a place to do business. Why? Our property taxes are too high. And it's unsustainable. We talk about jobs. Unless we make our government more efficient, our children will not be able to compete. They will lose jobs and their unemployment rate will go up. So we have to change. So the first goal here is to generate a conversation. The second thing I'll anticipate the whole theme here is, of course, it would make more sense to recreate the town of Rye. And I would encourage our citizen groups to make those efforts. Okay? However, we have a political reality. The political reality, as you suggested, doesn't look like it allows for that. Now, so my goal is to approximate as much as possible the savings that would incur if we all merge into the town of Rye and retain home rule. So as much as possible, generate the economic savings by taking into account the political reality. That's the goal. That's Joe Corbin's goal in this whole exercise. So let's take a look at it. So look, if we were to dissolve the town, the village, you've seen this before for those of you who attended the last meeting, but the village of Portchester would become coterminous town village. In New York State, in order to be a taxing entity, you have to be either a town or a city. So the principal reason the town of Rye continues to exist is because we're a town. So we're the only entity currently authorized to assess taxes, apply taxes. So if the town were to dissolve, the village of Portchester would have to become a coterminous town village. The village of Red Hook would have to be a coterminous town village. And for Rye Neck, it's a more complicated solution. Either they would become part of the town of Mamaroneck, or they too, along with Mamaroneck, would become a coterminous town village. Those are the potential solutions. We're not going to go into great detail tonight. It's very much of Mr. Stefko gave. If you're really interested in getting this in detail, CGR gave a 1-hour presentation. I promised Town Attorney Noda I would keep it down to You know, 45 minutes tonight, no. 15 minutes, a 15-minute overview. Okay, next slide. So, obviously, if the town of Rye dissolves, the other entities and municipal have to pick up tax collection, property assessment, the courts, Rye Town Park, Crawford Park, and the cemeteries. Okay? Bridge maintenance and the clerk function. Don't want to forget the Honorable Town Clerk Vespia, sorry. Okay. Financial considerations. Basically, the town of Rye, you know, last year we had $2.3 million town revenue. If you look at the 5-year average, we're non-tax revenue about $2.5 million. If the town were to dissolve, we'd share that out. We have assets. We talked about potentially selling some of these assets this year. You know, we probably have, $2.5–3 million in town assets to sell as well. And then we have some liabilities as well. We have liabilities for the bridges that would all have to be, so the revenues, assets would be absorbed by the succeeding entities as well as the liabilities. Okay? So, the reason we brought CGR in is to have an independent financial analysis of the potential savings. Now, on an operating basis, you can see, as Mr. Feynman pointed out, the savings are not big. Portchester would save about $77. I think it's based on a $500,000 property.
The typical property.
Typical property, I think it's $500,000, so $77 a year in taxes. Rye Brook, $3 a year. Rye Neck, $96 a year. And then this Mamaroneck, $459. I think that's depending on one of the options, correct? So basically, for Portchester, $77. Rye Brook, $3, and Rye Neck, just under $100. So that's the annual ongoing operating savings. It's just de minimis, but it's going in the right direction at least. Then they have a one-time benefit from the asset sales. The assets are worth more than liabilities, so Portchester gets $252 per parcel, Rye Brook $209 per parcel, and $200. So basically, if you eliminate the town of Rye, you get ongoing operating savings, and you get a one-time benefit to the average property of these numbers. So that's the financial analysis. Now, that's a rigorous 6 months of reports. The best report I've seen. There's been other reports. It's the best report I've seen on this rigorous analysis. So this is some dissolving the town of Rye. Now, for me, now we get to I gave you the punchline. For me, this is the benefit. If you dissolve the town of Rye, and it leads to increased sharing of services, you can begin to generate some material savings, some real savings. So, if you're of the view that the dissolution of the town of Rye incents and motivates Rye Brook and Portchester to work more closely together, you can generate additional savings. And how can they do it? Well, they can building, fire, they already share fire, garbage and recycling. They could contract out the parks and recreation, police, and public works. So these are some of the areas where they could generate shared services and begin to generate material savings. So again, my theory is you want to approximate as much as possible the potential economic savings and maintain the political reality of the home rule. That's the goal. Now, this hasn't been fully costed out, fully analyzed, and the municipalities may decide to do that if we get the next step. So let me tell you about next steps then. So effectively, first of all, each of the 4 municipalities, each of the boards is going to vote on this in January. We're going to have, each municipality will have another public discussion. Tonight we've anticipated the public discussion, but our January meeting will be designed primarily for public discussion on this. And each of the 3 other municipalities will have public, well, Rye Brook already had theirs, but we'll have a public discussion in Rye Neck, and in Portchester, and again in the town of Rye. We'll invite feedback from the comments on the draft from the public. Then we will finalize the draft. Once the draft is taking in, addressing issues like access, which are, very legitimate, fair, fundamental problems. Well, in the final draft, those questions will need to be addressed. We'll finalize the draft, and each of the municipalities will then vote. We'll probably have a special meeting towards the end of January, early February, vote to dissolve or not to dissolve the town. once we've gotten the feedback from the public, and finalize the report. So we'll look end January, early February, first 2 weeks in February, to vote yes or no. If the town of Rye, the village of Rybrook, the village of Portchester, and I get the Rye Neck section of Merrimack, or the village of Merrimack, the Rye Neck, actually I'm not sure, do we know how the Rye Neck section of Merrimack?
Village of Merrimack.
Village of Merrimack. All vote, actually, sorry, the village of Merrimack. If they all vote,
Merrimack would have to vote too.
and the town of Merrimack, they all vote in favor, you would then get a referendum to the people. And the people, Goldie, then would vote, so we had first have the municipalities vote, and then in November, the public would vote, and each municipality would have to vote in favor in order for it to pass. So there's two, if you will. First of all, the town board, the village, the municipal boards, then secondly, each of the communities, and that would be November. So, look, it's a difficult, long process, as you fair point, maybe Mr. Feynman. If it approves, then the important thing is execution. If we pass all these boards and it gets approved, what happens? Now, then we have a year to execute. So if it were to be approved in November of this year, you'd have 1 year to execute. And you need to pull together an execution plan. And that's where I see the shared service component really ratcheting up. That's where, and before, if people, the village boards are fully supportive, why not talk about shared services? Why not talk about savings beyond what we have? These are very good comments. You should be asking them to the village boards as well, right? What are the potential savings? How can we ratchet these up? What are you going to do to share services going forward? Those kinds of things. Are you going to take advantage of this opportunity to dissolve in the town to share services? And if you so, what additional savings can be made? And that can all be in the execution plan. So that's basically, I think that's the last slide, right? So that's basically the process. We can turn the lights on and bring the board back. So, did I get it done in 15 minutes, Ms. Noto? But, so ultimately, let me open up to questions for the town board. Again, this is a draft. There's no recommendations here. We're looking to hear from the public and the town board. And I just wanted to, introduce this. I'm not sure how much the town board's had a chance to go look through the documents, and if anybody has any questions or comments.
I went to the Dissolution
That's right.
study meeting. I was there. I thought the presentation was great. These were sort of comments I was going to make at the end, so I'm going to just sort of flip my
Okay.
comment section here. And,
Yep.
I think that I was very... I was reminded about how important it is to include the public in conversations, especially of this sort of nature, and how important it is for the public to get involved in it, because they brought up points that, I could almost see questions that the steering committee was probably followed up on. I can't be for sure, but it gives you a way of thinking about things that perhaps people on the board might not see it. So I just want to encourage people to get involved in this process, because the comments were made that day were very important. It was interesting because I hadn't thought about it in certain directions, or, oh, that's a good point. And the more minds that are involved in something like this, the more comments that are made, the more food for thought happens. And that's how I think we'll arrive at the best possible conclusion. And something to remember is, maybe it's not just about the money. Maybe it's about efficiencies. Are efficiencies going to be explored in a better way than they are now if we were to dissolve the town? Is it just about the dollars and cents? I don't know. I'm still trying to make up my own mind on that. It's interesting, but I'm definitely interested in removing layers of government. But I don't know that it's the right move in our particular setup, given that this is a unique situation. And CGI reminds us that we are a very unique situation. We are not the average structure due to the nature of the location of Rye Neck and certain shared services that already exist between Portchester and and Rybrook. And again, really what I am taking away and encouraging people to do is get involved in the process, because I think that's how we'll all arrive at the best conclusion. And I don't mean that for just this particular project. I mean that in all areas of both town meetings, your own village meetings, and other areas, the school board meetings. I think the more people that get out there and speak their mind and share their thoughts, then that's how decisions and change happens. And so I think this is a perfect example of why it's important to involve the public in this process.
Thank you, Councilwoman Collins. Any other comments, questions from the board?
No.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from the public? Please.
Even before you, wow.
First. I'll follow up on a question I asked when we had the meeting at Rybrook. You showed a slide there showing the one-time revenues, but not the one-time costs.
That's net. Those numbers are net of the liabilities.
No, I mean the one-time cost for the next 2 years of what...
Oh, the cost of the actual process.
Right, what the cost is. So if we're going to look at the revenue we need to look at the cost we're going to would incur over 2 years, so we'd have some basis of comparison.
That's we'll have to come back to you.
Also, when you listed the various areas of potential savings through building, fire, etc., it would be nice if we could see, with a dollar figure, what savings have occurred so far. That might give us some idea of how likely it is these two villages, now towns, can really work together. Also, there's nothing there on schools. Now, I know school districts are separate from municipalities, but they also serve as an example or model of can two communities collaborate, work together, and share.
Well, one of the... Sorry, let me let...
Yeah, you can go.
So in terms of the schools, there's absolutely no direct impact on the schools, and that's obviously a big concern. No, I know that's not what you're asking. But if, as a result of this, you had a shared parks and maintenance, the schools may, at their total discretion, want to participate in that. So as the shared service entity is created, gains credibility, and where maybe the municipalities demonstrate they can work together, whereas that's highly unlikely today for the schools to participate.
Yes.
They may want to, at their whole discretion, as a cost-saving effort, say, you know what, hey, this entity exists, why don't we, there's 3 school districts in the town of Rye, 2.5 municipalities, why not all pull together and buy landscaping equipment, for example, and run our parks and our facilities jointly. So again, it would be totally up to the schools to want to participate. So my thinking is if you create the entity's successful, success generates success, and maybe, now obviously this is several years down the road, the schools might want to participate. So the schools are not directly addressed in any of this, but you're correct to allude to the possibility of schools getting involved if we can demonstrate savings. That'll be my answer.
The other thing that I want to touch base on, because I wanted to say this before, but now that you're talking about what the cost savings, the overall cost savings is, and you talked about the efficiencies over the next couple of years in the town of Rye, the values that were on the slide that showed the potential cost savings for all the components are based on historic values and not on future values. So if the town of Rye continues to focus on efficiencies over the next year or two, those cost savings for the municipalities, the parts that were laid out there, are going to be minimized. And that's another value, I would say, leaning in the direction of those shared services. That's where you're really going to have the most savings, because eliminating the town of Rye, and just to go back to what I've said before, and I have to repeat it again, is that without an actionable item at the end of this process that's going to benefit all of the residents in all of the communities, then there's no benefit. But to just eliminate the town of Rye is not enough. There has to be much more. There has to be buy-in and some action steps and an action plan for each of the municipalities. Continue down that road for cost savings. So obviously, it's not just that one-up. The one-up, and I agree with you, Mr. Feynman. The one-up is it's not going to benefit everybody. Not enough. There has to be a substantial effort on behalf of all the municipalities. So, again, thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Feynman. Please, Goldie.